So not so long ago, someone asked an interesting question. They asked if I could give them a systematic way of working on close voiced triads, and I thought that'd be a interesting subject for a video, so that's what I'm going to cover this week. So what I thought I'd do is firstly define what a close voiced triad is, and then show you how I visualize them going up and down the neck, and then finally give you a couple of exercises that you can use to just work on these. So what is a close voiced triad? Well, let's start by defining what a triad is, and all a triad is basically three notes that are a third apart. So in C major, for example, a third above C is E, C, D, E, and a third above E is G, E, F, G. And those three notes are the three notes that make a C major chord. And then all you do is you map those across the octaves that you can reach, and you get the standard C major chord that I'm sure you know. Okay, so that's the major chord and the minor chord. The only difference between the major chord and the minor chord is instead of using a major third for the first note, you use a minor third. And that gives you a C minor chord. And then two others that you use much less often are the diminished, which is, if I do in D here, we'd have D, a minor third above that, and then a minor third above that. Gives us a diminished chord because we've got that diminished fifth in, a minor third and a diminished fifth. And then finally we've got the augmented, which has a major third, and then we sharpen the fifth for an augmented chord, and it creates this kind of sound. So that's what a triad is. Now, a close voiced triad is all about how you map it across the octaves. So for example, when I'm playing a triad, I'm just using the C major triad, for example, I'm just using the notes C, E and G. And all we're talking about when we talk about it being close voiced is that we're bunching the notes together and trying to keep them as close as possible. So that's a close voiced triad because that's the closest E above that C, and that's the closest G above that C. Now I could have voiced it differently and used my E an octave above. It's still C major, it's still made of C, E and G, but it's not close voiced. So that's what we mean by close voiced triads. And then the final thing to be aware of is to understand what an inversion is. So there are three inversions of triads, and all an inversion really does is say what's the lowest note that you're going to play in this group of three notes. So as C is my lowest note, and C is the root of the triad as well, this is called a root inversion. But I could have made E the lowest note and shuffled the notes around above, so the next nearest note above that is the G there, which is the fifth, and above that is the root. And because I'm starting with the next note up, that's the first inversion. And then finally I could start with a G, the next note in the triad above that is C, and the next note in the triad above that is E. So that's the second inversion. And then moving on from that, I'm on to C again, so that would be a root inversion if I built from there. So that's it. These are really quite straightforward concepts. Let's talk about how I visualize them on the neck. So if we zoom in. So for each of the chord types, I visualize three shapes, one per inversion. So I've got three shapes for the major, minor, organ, diminished. And I've actually put them all in a PDF that I'll attach to the description field of this video as well. If you want to download that, that might help. But what I thought I'd do is I'd just go through the major ones and show you what they look like on the neck. So the way I lay them out is I lay them out as one note per string, and that gives me like a fundamental shape that I can use and evolve as I move on. So the first shape looks like this if we stay in C major. So we've got the root, the third, the fifth, the root, the third, and the fifth there. So it's quite a stretched out shape, as you can see. But I don't play it across the neck like that. And actually I find it quite easy to visualize if you think about it as a bar A chord just there and a bar G chord in the bass. Then you can kind of see how those two shapes fit together. And the reason why I memorize this shape is every 3 strings is a close voiced arpeggio. So you can see here I've got the root inversion, then I've got the first inversion, and then the second inversion, and then the root inversion. Okay? So if I memorize that shape, I can memorize close voiced arpeggios going all the way across all 6 strings. And the next shape is basically that, but I start the next inversion up. And this shape looks like this. And again, it looks very much like a bar E chord, but with a third in the bass. And again, you can see there's a third, the first inversion, so the third, fifth, and the root. Then the fifth, root, third, second inversion, and then root, third, fifth, root inversion, and then third, fifth, root. So first inversion. So that's the next of my 3 shapes. And then finally, we can jump up here and we do the second, start with the second inversion, so the fifth in the bass, fifth, root, third, and then fifth, root, third, and you can see that makes a bar C chord, but with the fifth in the bass. And again, you can see there's a second inversion, there's a root inversion, first inversion, and there's the second inversion. So those are the 3 shapes that you need to know in order to memorize all over the neck if you're just playing 1 note per string. And then you can take those and adapt them. So for example, if I take that root inversion down here, I can play those 3 notes like this. So a note per string for the first 2 notes and then stretch out for my 3rd note. Or I could play it like this. So I'm basically playing between 2 shapes. And so that's the other way that I work on these as well. So as I say, just the major shapes going up the neck. So how do I practice them? Well, what I like to do is to just choose 3 chords and use 3 different inversions, the 3 different inversions, and see if I can map them across the neck. And so what I'll do is I'll pick a pick pattern or an arrangement of notes and just work on that and see if I can move it across the neck. It makes for a really good picking exercise or a sweep picking exercise, so that's why I like to do this. So again, let's zoom in and see if I can go through this with you. So let me demonstrate with 3 chords. So where am I? That's a G flat, and I'll just use a simple picking pattern, just going up and down those 3 notes. So that's from the first shape, and then from the second shape maybe I'd play just there, D flat. And then from the 3rd shape, play just there, which is that's an A flat. So as you can see, I can just move between these, and then I cross over to the next set of strings, go back to the first shape, then the second shape, 3rd shape, first shape, second shape, 3rd shape, first shape, second shape, 3rd shape, and just finish. And that's a handy way of just practicing these, and you can see that means that I go through every inversion of every shape between every set of the strings across the neck. And that's just playing through the major shapes. I can do exactly the same thing with the minor. And work those across in the same way, just again, just working across the neck, seeing if I can visualize and bring up each of the 3 inversions between each set of 3 strings as I work across the neck. And as you can see, it's kind of an interesting little picking exercise as well, and string dampening exercise, which is a good thing to work on as well, seeing if you can control the strings. So that's it. Hopefully that was useful for you. If you have any ideas, I'm happy to discuss them with you, and who knows, I might turn them into a video as well. So anyway, good luck with that, and we'll chat next time. Goodbye.